I was a New York City detective for 23 years.
Stephen Caracappa and his partner would be the most corrupt and vicious cops in NYPD history if what this mob boss told Ed Bradley is true.
I gave them $75,000. They killed him cowboy style. They pulled alongside of him, they shot him, they made him crash into the fence alongside the Bell Parkway on the service road. Right? Then Steve got out of the car, ran across the street, and finished shooting him, finished killing him in the car.
How does Detective Caracappa respond to the charges that he was a mafia hitman? You'll hear him tonight in his only interview.
When Sony, the electronics giant that's the epitome of Japan Incorporated, lost its cutting edge, it did something radical. It hired a Westerner, Sir Howard Stringer, as its new CEO.
Sony is no longer the coolest. This is the coolest.
You can take iPod and beat us over the head with it, but it's only one product, and we have 1,000 products.
Still, talk about a tough job. He has to turn Sony around in a culture that's not always easy for a Westerner to understand.
Sorry.
That's all right. Were you lost in translation too?
Bode Miller is exciting to watch because you never know whether he's going to make it to the finish line.
Oh!
He falls more than any other world champion. But Bode Miller is like no other champion we've ever met. He's expected to win gold, but doesn't care if he wins medals. He's in it, he says, for the fun. His coaches say sometimes he has too much fun, partying when he should be training.
Do you think partying has ever interfered with your performance?
Definitely. Talk about a hard challenge right there. I mean, if you ever try to ski when you're wasted, it's not easy.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl.
I'm Bob Simon.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Mike Wallace. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
We asked Lindsay Allen how new Ambien CR helped her with her sleeping trouble. Well, there you are. New Ambien CR has a controlled release formula in a 2-layer tablet. The first layer dissolves quickly to help you get to sleep fast, while the second layer dissolves slowly to help you stay asleep. So you can wake up and get ready for your day. New Ambien CR is one of many treatment options, in addition to lifestyle changes, that you and your doctor can consider. Ambien CR is non-narcotic. Until you know how Ambien CR will affect you, you shouldn't drive or operate machinery. Side effects may include next-day drowsiness, dizziness, and headache. You shouldn't take it with alcohol. All sleep medicines carry some risk of dependency. Do not use sleep medicines for extended periods without first talking to your doctor. Be sure you are able to devote 7 to 8 hours to sleep before you need to be active again. Ask your doctor about the new Ambien. New Ambien CR. Tomorrow will thank you.
When my husband got hurt and missed all that work, I didn't know how we were going to get by. Luckily, Aflac was there to pitch in. Aflac gave us the cash we needed to help pay for some of the stuff that health insurance doesn't. Like groceries, car maintenance, even gasoline. When things happen, it's nice to know Aflac's there for you.
The female duck swims near.
Aflac. Ask about it at work.
I'm not a spring chicken, so I gotta get more concerned about your heart. I ate Quaker oatmeal every day for 30 days.
Quaker oats help lower Darlene's cholesterol 10 whole points.
It makes me very proud.
This is my heart that I'm making healthy. This is beeping, isn't it?
CSI Miami kicks off the new year.
Gentlemen, pick a target.
With an episode to die for. And after you see it...
What's my sister doing here?
Am I under arrest?
You are. Nothing will ever be the same.
Your lab just tampered with evidence. I'm not letting you get away with it.
A new CSI Miami, CBS tomorrow.
Over the years, we have done our share of stories about police corruption, but none more outrageous than the one you're about to hear. It's the story of 2 New York City police officers who stand accused of being hired killers for the mafia. Stephen Caracappa and Louis Eppolito, 2 highly decorated former detectives, are set to go on trial next month, charged with the murders of 10 people, murders committed on the orders of a vicious mob boss. Tonight, for the first time, one of those detectives, Stephen Caracappa, who is free on bail, answers the allegations that he betrayed his badge and became a mafia hitman.
How do you respond to that?
Totally ridiculous. It's ludicrous. Anybody that knows me knows I love the police department. I couldn't kill anybody. I shot a guy once on a job, and I still think about it. Bothers me.
If you're not involved, why did they go after you?
I could come up with 100 different scenarios, but none of the scenarios make any sense to me myself. All I know is that I am here now, and I'm fighting for my life. I'm fighting for my reputation. I want to be vindicated of this, and I'm mad and I'm angry.
For most of his 23-year career in the New York City Police Department, Stephen Caracappa was widely respected for his tenacity and savvy in cracking complicated cases. He rose from street patrolman to undercover narcotics officer to first-grade detective, receiving numerous commendations along the way. He helped create the prestigious Organized Crime Homicide Unit. His mission was to investigate the Lucchese crime family, but instead, prosecutors say that in 1985, Caracappa and his former partner Louis Ippolito actually joined the family and began working for its brutal boss, Anthony Gaspipe Casso.
I have two detectives that work the major squad team for the New York Police Department.
What were their names?
Lou Ippolito and Steve. I can't, he's got a long last name, Caracappa? Yeah, Caracappa, whatever it is. I can't say it all the time, you know? Louis is a big guy, he works out. Steve, a little small, skinny guy.
I interviewed Anthony Gaspipe Casso in 1998 in prison, where he is serving a life sentence after admitting to 36 murders. He told me about the extraordinary relationship he had with detectives Caracappa and Ippolito. He also told his story to federal prosecutors, spelling out how, for a hefty salary, Caracappa and Ippolito would walk right up to Casso's enemies, trick them into believing they were under arrest, and then deliver them to Casso to be executed. That's exactly what Casso told us the detectives did to a young hood named Jimmy Heidel.
They put him in the car. The kid thought they were taking him to the station house, but they took him to a garage. When they got him to the garage, they laid him on the floor. They tied his feet, his hands, cuffs, put him in the trunk of the car. After that, I killed the kid myself. At that time, I gave Louis and Steve, I think, $45,000 for them delivering them to me.
You gave them a bonus for delivering someone to you killed?
Right. Well, they wanted to kill him for me. I didn't even have to do that. They were going to get him, kill him, and throw him, do whatever I wanted to do with him.
I don't know Heidel, never picked up Heidel. I never met Anthony Casso. I don't know Anthony Casso.
Never paid by Anthony Casso?
No, sir.
Why would Anthony Casso lie?
I don't know. To save himself, I would assume. But why would he use me? I don't know.
Casso was in fact hoping to save himself and reduce his sentence when he first told his astonishing account to investigators 12 years ago. But prosecutors say they couldn't charge detectives Ippolito and Caracappa then because they couldn't prove his story. But now they have witnesses to many of the murders who corroborate what Casso had to say. Among them, Jimmy Heidel's mother, who told investigators that the detectives came to her house looking for her son a few hours before he was abducted and killed. And a garage worker who told authorities where to dig up the body of another man, Caracappa and Ippolito, allegedly buried here beneath this lot in Brooklyn. The most brazen crime former detectives Ippolito and Caracappa are accused of took place here along New York City's Belt Parkway. Allegedly, in broad daylight, the two detectives pulled over a car driven by a mobster named Eddie Lino. They flashed their badges and, according to prosecutors, shot him dead.
I gave them $75,000. They killed him cowboy style. They pulled alongside of him. They shot him. They made him crash into the fence alongside the Belt Parkway on the service road. Right? Then Steve got out of the car, ran across the street, and finished shooting him, finished killing him in the car.
I was a New York City detective for 23 years. We don't go around killing people. I did not kill Eddie Leno. I'm not a cowboy.
Yeah, but I mean, being on the police force doesn't mean automatically I'm a good guy.
No.
There have been guys on the police force who have killed.
Yes.
So that doesn't, that's not a good answer for me. Well, to say I didn't do it because I'm on the job.
No, it's my answer. It's my answer because I have pride in myself, Mr. Bradley. I wouldn't do that. Put my life in jeopardy, my family, disgrace the badge, disgrace the city, take everything that I'd worked for my whole life and throw it away and kill somebody in the street like a cowboy? That's not my style. It's not me.
If you thought you wouldn't get caught?
Get caught. Everybody gets caught. And the person who did this is going to get caught.
Caracampa says he's also speaking for his friend and co-defendant Louis Eppolito, who declined our request for an interview.
He's not the monster that the newspapers portrayed him to be. We'll put up the evidence to show that we couldn't have done these crimes. We just couldn't have done them.
But prosecutors say Stephen Caracampa left a paper trail, a key piece of evidence, proving he used his position to access police department computers and funnel confidential information to Anthony Casso about the whereabouts of his enemies. One of them was a mobster named Nicholas Guido. Investigators say Caracampa ran that name through his computer, mistakenly came up with an address for the wrong Nicholas Guido, and a few weeks later, it led Casso to kill an innocent man.
I don't remember running Nicholas Guido in a computer, but if they have a printout saying I did, I probably did. I ran countless of names in the computer.
So you're saying it's just a coincidence that a month after you ran the name of Nicholas Guido through the computer, that a month later, a Nicholas Guido, an innocent man, was killed, shot to death?
I don't know if it's a coincidence, but if I did anything and I had to run a name, it's down on paper and it's documented why I did it.
And who you did it for?
And who I did it for. And I definitely didn't do it for any wise guy.
Stephen Caracampa's lawyer, Ed Hayes, argues it would have been implausible for a first-grade detective like Caracampa to make such a rookie mistake.
If he had been looking for the right Nicky Guido, it would have been easy for him to find him. It's practically impossible to me to assume that he would have made this mistake because he has based his whole career on avoiding that kind of mistake. Assuming you're going to kill people for money, you want to kill the right guy, not the wrong guy. Otherwise, you got to kill two people for the price of one, right?
Maybe he was just sloppy.
Yeah, maybe he made a mistake, or maybe he didn't do it. But in our system, you don't convict somebody on a maybe.
While that may be, prosecutors have also obtained information from a former top associate of Anthony Gaspipe Casso named Burton Kaplan, a convicted narcotics trafficker who claims he personally paid detectives Caracampa and Eppolito when they committed murders for Gaspipe Casso. Ed Hayes says neither Casso nor Kaplan have any credibility.
You have several individuals that even by criminal standards are revolting. And I think that they saw this as an opportunity to make a plan where they could get special treatment and get out of jail. And in fact, Burt Kaplan, who's a major drug dealer, a super large money launderer, has gotten out of jail because of making these accusations.
So you think you're being framed?
Mr. Bradley, I don't think it. I know it.
And Stephen Caracampa says he has a good idea why he was implicated in the first place. His relationship with Louis Eppolito, who came from a family of mobsters and wrote a book about it. Mafia Cop, the story of an honest cop whose family was the mob. In the book, Eppolito brags about socializing with mobsters and torturing suspects when he was on the job. Do you ever worry that somebody on the jury might know of that book and say, well, if he did those things, it might not be that much of a leap to kill somebody for the mafia, and that you get lumped into that, guilt by association?
It could be, but if you knew Louis Eppolito and you spoke to Louis Eppolito and you spent any time with him, you would see he couldn't do that. The guy is gentle.
But there's a separate case that paints a dark picture of Louis Eppolito involving this man, Barry Gibbs, who spent 19 years in prison for a murder prosecutors now say he didn't commit. He was freed 4 months ago after a judge ruled that Detective Eppolito, who investigated the crime, intimidated the only eyewitness in the case into falsely testifying eyewitness in the case into falsely testifying against Gibbs.
He's a corrupt cop and he's no good. And that's the end of it. He ruined my life. He could have done that to anybody. It just so happened it was me. He could have done it to you. He could have done it to anybody sitting here.
I'm jogging on this path right here.
That eyewitness who testified against Gibbs was a former Marine, Peter Mitchell. In 1986, Mitchell saw a man dumping a woman's body along this road in Brooklyn. He gave a description of the suspect to Eppolito, who was on the scene investigating the murder. And while his description bore no resemblance to Barry Gibbs, Mitchell says Eppolito threatened to hurt him and his family if he refused to pick Gibbs out of a police lineup and point the finger at him in court.
When you testified against him, Barry Gibbs, you knew that you were lying.
Yes, I did.
You knew that your testimony would put him in prison.
Yeah, but you know what? I want this cop after me.
How could you do that?
How could I do that? My family was on the line here. If I had to do it, I'll do it again.
But he was innocent.
Yeah, well, either me dying or get a bullet shot in the head, or my mother go to jail, or my father go into jail. Come on.
So you thought if you didn't finger Barry Gibbs, you'd be dead?
I'll be dead. Like that.
As for Barry Gibbs, he would still be in prison today if prosecutors hadn't stumbled across his case file last spring during a search of Louis Eppolito's home. Eppolito has not been charged with any criminal wrongdoing in this case and maintains that Barry Gibbs is guilty. But the former detective made a brief statement to reporters about the 10 murder charges against him.
I was a very highly decorated cop. I worked very hard my whole life, and I just want the people to know that I'm not the person that they're portraying me. Louis, were you ever a bad cop? Never in my life.
The question for the jury in this case, which goes to trial next month, is, did 2 decorated police officers cross the thin blue line and become hitmen for the mafia?
You must know that if you get convicted on even one of these murder charges, you'll go down in history as one of the most corrupt cops in the history of the department.
That's true, Mr. Braley, but I won't be convicted because I didn't do this. Didn't do it, so I'm not going to be convicted. I won't have that on my epitaph.
Let's say you have a patient, adult male, 45, he's generally healthy, but his cholesterol is elevated. He's eating healthy, exercising, but his cholesterol is still up. Choices.
Prescribe a cholesterol-lowering medicine like a statin.
Good choice. Other options?
How about prescribing Zetia? It works differently. Statins work mainly with the liver. Zetia works in the digestive tract, as do some other medicines. But Zetia is unique in the way it helps block the absorption of cholesterol that comes from food.
So it complements what he's already doing.
Yep, and Zetia, along with a healthy diet, lowered bad cholesterol by as much as 30 points. That's 18%.
Zetia may not be right for people who have ever had liver problems, are nursing or pregnant or may become pregnant. A doctor will decide if Zetia is right for them.
Unexplained muscle pain or weakness could be a sign of a rare but serious side effect and should be reported to a doctor right away. Common side effects included tiredness and stomach pain. Let's break for lunch. Eat healthy.
Don't forget to exercise.
Ask your doctor if Zetia is right for you. Zetia, it's a different way to help fight cholesterol.
Mommy, would you be a dear and go to Radio Shack and pick me up this Sprint phone? You can get the fair and flexible plan, which Daddy's accountant loves, and they come in lots of adorable colors. Hold on. Pendleton!
Miss.
Yeah. I like the blue one and the pink one. And get Pendleton the black one. He's such a little teddy bear.
Not really, madam.
I guess you are.
Not at
Don't just get a phone. Get the right phone at Radio Shack.
You are.
If you're concerned about catching a cold or the flu this season, here's an idea. Move to a deserted island and avoid other people for 6 months. Or just drink a glass of Florida orange juice every day.
Give your immune system more of the vitamins and minerals it needs. Florida orange juice. Healthy, pure and simple.
Excuse me, do you believe your brokerage firm's advice is objective?
Sure. Their objective is to sell me something.
Well, he only calls me when he's got something to sell.
I made it my objective to do my own investing. So I switched to TD Waterhouse. Best move I ever made.
TD Waterhouse brings together free, independent research and third-party reports so you can make your own objective decisions. You can do this. Switch today to TD Waterhouse, the alternative to higher-priced brokers.
CBS tomorrow. It's a new year with new episodes of your favorite comedies. First, take a trip into the mind of Charlie Harper. Then, is one of these men about to become a daddy?
Well, I'm going to go check on dinner. I have this sinking feeling I left a bun in the oven.
A new Out of Practice, right after a new 2.5 Men. CBS tomorrow.
The stars will be out just for you.
Thank you, people!
The People's Choice Awards, hosted by Craig Ferguson, live CBS Tuesday.
Afterwards, we're all going for tattoos.
At the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this week, the CEO of Sony delivered the keynote address. That's no surprise, but what is surprising is who that CEO is. Sir Howard Stringer, the first Westerner ever to lead this epitome of Japan Incorporated. In the ultra-competitive electronics business, Sony has stumbled badly. Once a nimble innovator known for the coolest gadgets, it became a bloated, bureaucratic conglomerate. In 2004, Sony actually lost money for the first time in a decade. 6 months ago, Sir Howard was given the job of turning Sony around, and he has already shaken it up in ways his predecessors never could, precisely because he's not Japanese. But that's also what makes his job so hard. Why did you take this job?
I thought about taking this job for well over a week because I knew that the reason I got the job was because it was in financial difficulties. So I knew that I would have to use every personal skill I have to persuade and cajole and convince that for the greater good of the company, we might have to do some tough things.
Like fire thousands of people, something Sony's Japanese executives, so entrenched in the tradition of jobs for life, could never do. In Howard Stringer, they saw a guy who would cut like hell, but somehow be nice about it. You have announced a new restructuring plan where you're going to eliminate 10,000 jobs, 11 of 65 factories. Have you announced which of the 11 factories will be eliminated?
Some of them. I mean, we know what they are. We're taking care of the employees before we take care of the press.
So you know what they are, and you're just not going to tell us.
I'm not going to tell you, no. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do what I've announced I'm going to do, but it does mean I'm going to do it carefully. It's not as easy to be cavalier about people's jobs as one can be in the United States.
But it's also not easy to run a company where you're never quite sure what the heck people are saying. Howard, naze kono shigoto o hiki u keta no desu?
Yes, I haven't been to Hawaii lately.
You didn't understand a word I said.
No.
That was Japanese. Not speaking the language is only the beginning. Just standing up makes Sir Howard stand out. He's a foot taller than everyone. Do you ever just get out and walk around in Tokyo?
I do, though. I don't shop. There's nothing my size.
The 2 weeks a month he spends in Japan are filled with cultural disconnects, whether it's a shaky interpreter during a speech.
Sorry.
That's all right. Were you lost in translation too?
Or an upside-down business card exchange.
Oh, sorry. Oh, wrong way, sir. There you go. Ted, go, sir.
Thank you very much.
Or a just not done peck on the cheek for a factory worker. It's clear that Sony has never had a leader quite like Howard Stringer. The company has 150,000 employees, $70 billion in revenue, and products ranging from movies to music to all things electronic. Sony long defined the leading edge in gadgetry, transistor radios in the 50s, Trinitron TVs in the 60s.
From Sony, the one and only.
And in the 70s, the revolutionary Walkman.
The Sony Walkman is a tiny stereo cassette player with truly incredible sound.
But if Sony had the market cornered for 25 years, it took Apple just months to steal it away. I'm going to show you something.
Yeah.
Aha! Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh, hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. This is the symbol. a major symbol of where Sony went off the tracks. What happened?
There's no question that the iPod was a wake-up call for Sony, and the answer is that Steve Jobs was smarter at software than we are.
Stringer says Steve Jobs came up with the iPod and iTunes, a simple system for people to download music, while Sony, worried about its record company, wasted precious time trying to figure out how to keep people from stealing songs.
We tried to have a secure device, and that was a myth.
That was a mistake.
And a mistake. Sad for the music company, mind you.
Well, of course, Apple didn't have a music company
There
to
you
worry
go.
about. Sony had a music company.
This is true.
It's not just the iPod. Samsung hurt them in flat-screen TVs. In video games, Microsoft's Xbox challenged the PlayStation. One gets the feeling that Sony is no longer the coolest. This is the coolest.
You can take iPod and beat us over the head with it, but it's only one product, and we have 1,000 products. Apple is 2 or 3.
But that bigness is Sony's problem. Too many divisions full of managers and bureaucrats not talking to each other.
So all of a sudden, the entrepreneurial company over 60 years has become this big elephant.
Professor Hirotaka Takeuchi is dean of one of Japan's most prestigious business schools.
I don't know if you heard Stephen Jobs' speech, the title of which was "Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish."
And Sony wasn't hungry anymore.
As hungry or as foolish.
The man Sony is counting on to fix that and foster unity and cooperation is an unlikely choice, and not just because he's a sir rather than a samurai. You do not have the typical resume of a CEO. No MBA.
No.
You're kind of a rare bird.
Odd, I think, is probably the word.
But you're very un-CEO-like.
And I don't have a financial background. I mean, I used to deliberately say that I never want to be in management. I still don't know how I got into management in the first place.
Born in Wales 63 years ago, he lived in a house with no electricity, then won a scholarship to a fancy boys' school in England, and went on to college at Oxford. You came to New York when you were, what, 22?
Right.
You were an Englishman. You arrived in New York, you got a job, and you were drafted.
Yes.
Then you went and fought for the United States in Vietnam.
I would use the word fought loosely.
Served.
I served.
You served.
I served.
But you weren't an American citizen.
No.
Why did you do that?
Because I'm too stubborn. I was too stubborn to go back. It was my great adventure coming over to America with $200 in my pocket and looking for work all on my own.
After Vietnam, the work he found was here at CBS News. In the 70s, producing documentaries. In the 80s, running the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather, which he still says was his favorite job ever. But perhaps more defining is what happened when he was promoted to president of CBS News. In 1987, he oversaw the first layoffs in the company's history. He had to fire 200 colleagues and friends. Yet, this is the amazing thing, I don't know anybody who blamed you. Now, how did you manage that?
By communication. I mean, I did it myself. I mean, I didn't send a memo to somebody and say, your job is over. And it was emotionally very draining, and it affected me.
But he had to do it again, and on a much larger scale. Stringer has actually worked for Sony for the last 8 years, winning notice and praise for turning around its ailing North American movie and music divisions. You eliminated 9,000 jobs here, and you have been dubbed by a newspaper the affable axe wielder.
Yes.
So you have this reputation of being able to somehow manage these downsizings and maintain your reputation as a good guy.
I hope I wasn't chosen because of my axe-wielding skills. I mean, you usually offered a job because someone has not done a job well, or there's a crisis.
And boy, is there a crisis now. How to restore Sony's competitiveness in today's cutthroat global market.
Hello?
He's already unified his workforce. What Japanese executive does this? Working the rope line at American-style town hall meetings. And he never misses a chance to get out on the factory floor.
How are you?
To see and be seen.
There are a lot of young people who say, go on, shake it up more, do more.